What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Shadow Band Radio, I guess we'll call it, because I've noticed my channel has been extremely shadow banned, if there is such a thing. They must have cranked it up even higher because I just can't get the views anymore, and I'm making the same kind of content I've always made, so it's pretty weird. And so anyway, I wanted to talk to you today about something that I saw on the way into town, and I'm not going to tell you where I live. That's one of my things, is that I'm broadcasting from an undisclosed location. And let's just say I'm somewhere in between the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. That's about as much as you need to know. I'm in the central United States. And I don't do that to be a jerk. I do that for my own protection, for my own peace of mind and privacy. You know, I like privacy and stuff like that. So anyway, I wanted to tell you about this story that to me, it really made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up big time when I saw this. I was going into town, and out on the highway, all of a sudden I see all of these, the biggest convoy of military vehicles I've probably ever seen in my life. As far as I can remember, it's the biggest one of all of the same kinds of equipment going to one of our major military installations that we have here around us. And what I think it is, from what it looked like, it was a big truck, basically like a not a 2.5 or deuce and a half or whatever they call it, not that size. It was the next size up, like the big rig style military trucks, and they had this big covered tarp over the back section behind the cab, and it looked like it was about 20 foot long at least, and you couldn't see what was in there. And then they were pulling a trailer, and that trailer had these things that looked like, to me, missile launch pads. They had outriggers on the trailer so that they could come out and go down to the ground and stabilize the thing. And they had these like big metal plates inside that looked like they folded out like this. So I presume what they were missile launch pads. So you could put the missile set up in the center of them, and when they shoot up, it would deflect some of that, you know, gas that comes off and the exhaust that comes out of those things, right? So you could launch them from your truck or whatever. So anyway, they look like surface-to-air missile defense system platforms to me. Now, I'm not in the know on that, so I could be totally wrong about that, but as soon as I saw them and I started trying to figure out what the hell they were, again, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, because I was like, they know something we don't know. And as far as the eye could see were truck after truck after truck after truck, just like this, all going to our major military installation here in my area. And so I'm about 25 miles away from that here as a crow flies, and so probably not far enough if full-scale nuclear war started happening, or if hypersonic missiles started flying in or whatever from either the Chinese or the Russians or the Iranians or whoever else has hypersonic technology now. Or it could be a traditional, you know, ICBM nuke, or that kind of a deal. Or it could be a suitcase nuke or something like that, a tactical nuke, right? I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities of radioactive fallout coming out here and 25 miles away and getting me. And so whenever I see that sort of stuff happening, and I see defenses, what appears to be defenses being put up around me here in my state, of course, it makes me get nervous. And I start thinking about all the different things that have gone on to lead up to this, and how at no point has the Biden administration or any of the, you know, diplomats done anything diplomatic, even remotely diplomatic. They're refusing to have peace talks with Putin, because they're claiming he's an evil dictator who's out of his mind, and, you know, he's paranoid that NATO's coming to get him, when meanwhile NATO has been inching closer and closer and closer and surrounding Russia, at least southern Russia, since they had that agreement back in the day. After the breakup of the USSR, there was an agreement between, I believe, Gorbachev and somebody either in the Bush or the Reagan administration, I'm not sure. But there was an agreement of not 1 inch of expansion towards Russia. And that was the deal, right? NATO wasn't supposed to expand towards Russia. Meanwhile, they've been getting up all these former USSR countries and turning them into NATO allies. And so that's why the whole thing's going on. Also, you combine in the fact that back in 2014, when Obama was still in the White House, he sent Victoria Nuland and others over to the Ukraine to start a color revolution. And then there's the dirty dealings with Biden saying he's not going to get the $1 billion if he doesn't fire that prosecutor, and ha ha ha, on and on and on. Well, I'll be damned, the next day he fired the guy. Well, I mean, there's all kinds of corruption in Ukraine. It's been known for many, many years that it's one of, if not the most corrupt country in the whole world. And yet we're sending over $100 billion to them, unaccounted for dollars that we're not following where they're going. And many of those dollars have been spotted leaving the country of Ukraine in suitcases, people just carrying brand new, freshly minted $100 bills that you and I, as taxpayers, had to send over there. So anyway, there's lots of corruption going on. Here recently, I'm sure you guys have been following. I haven't really talked about it because I wanted to, have enough different information to actually make a video out of it. But in the past couple of weeks, all of these drone attacks have started happening inside mainland Russia. And that is definitely turning the knob up. Every time something like that happens, the chances for a nuclear response from Russia are dramatically increasing. And they're saying over and over and over. And I'm honestly surprised that Putin, if he was halfway as bad as the MSM and NATO is trying to paint him as being, he would have already used at least a tactical nuke, but he hasn't done that. But he keeps saying he's going to. And so at a certain point, to save face, Putin is going to have to do what he said he was going to do. They keep crossing these red lines that are drawn in the sand, or, line in the sand type of a situation. The United States and NATO keeps crossing these things, whether it be at the beginning, they claimed there were no NATO troops on the ground. Now it's been proven there are British special forces and United States special forces, at very least, training Ukrainian troops to do these actions. One of the big ones that we just found out about is that the Nord Stream pipeline was destroyed, they claim, by Ukrainian soldiers that had just been trained how to do it by special forces from the United States. So, and of course, you remember the whole lie. When Biden knew that we had done this operation, he came out on the mainstream media and said, well, Putin did this to himself. That's why he did it, blah, blah, blah. Of course, they wouldn't do something like that that's going to hurt their ability to sell energy to Germany. So not only did it hurt the Russians, it hurt the Germans as well. Remember, they had a real shortage of energy and all that, and they had real problems, and energy prices spiked through the roof. At least that's my understanding, and maybe they've come down now some, but I'm sure they never come back to the same levels that you had before. So anyway, you got all that going on, and things are just escalating every single day. You look at something, the Ukrainians were fixing to fire off a counteroffensive, and then sometime last week, that giant dam got blown up. Again, it's the same old broken record story. Biden and the Biden administration are coming out and saying, oh, the Russians did it. Well, here's what you may not know. The Russians actually controlled that region before the explosion took place. So they already had that under lockdown. Why would they blow up something they already control? One. Two, there were mostly Russian people that lived around that area, pro-Russian people. So they wouldn't want to just flood these people that are, pro-Russian down in this valley or whatever. And so that didn't make any sense. It looks to me, and I have no proof of this, but I think with enough time, maybe in a year or two, we'll find out that actually, yeah, it was Ukraine that did it to hurt the Russians, because that river apparently feeds the Crimean base that they have down there, the Black Sea port or whatever they call it down there in Crimea. So there's no strategic advantage that I can see for the Russians to blow up this dam. And it's got a nuclear power plant on it or downstream of it. So it's definitely a possibility that there could be a nuclear meltdown as a result of this. And I don't think Russia would want that on them, coming back on them for international laws that have been violated and stuff like this, right? Or whatever. War crimes, because they blew up a dam, and then in turn that caused the nuclear meltdown, which would be catastrophic, obviously. So we don't want that. No one wants that. My opinion is we're going to find out, 6 months, a year from now, that the Biden regime and his minions sent in special forces to train the Ukrainian troops of how to use the types of explosives that were used to blow that bridge or that dam up. I think that's what we're going to find out. So every time I turn on the news now, I'm seeing more and more propaganda talking about how Ukraine is actually winning the war and on and on and on. And then I read the real news and it says, no, they're getting their asses handed to them. They are not winning. The Ukrainians are not winning. They can't hold any territory. They can't keep the Russians from invading any territory or taking over any territory. They've had limited success in stopping the missiles that are coming in from Russia. And so anyway, things are heating up more and more and more. And I think that we're going to be, if we're not already in, we're going to be in full scale, hand-to-hand combat type warfare very, very soon. And the really scary thing about all of this, and the reason that I think it's going to affect us all, is because in the past, World War II, that was a European theater. It was all done over in Europe for the most part, other than the attack on Pearl Harbor. There were, as far as I know, I don't think there were any other American attacks on American soil. I may be wrong about that. I'm thinking that there might be one other place that we controlled, like, I don't know. I don't know where it would be, but there might have been one other Japanese attack that I'm just forgetting about right now. Anyway, the point is we've never had, full-scale warfare going on in the continental United States. And I think that's what's going to happen. Not only is that going to happen as a result of Biden's open borders, and we know for a fact that the Border Patrol has busted, far as I know, countless Chinese nationals and just released them into the wild. So there are Chinese nationals coming up. And this, that's what I think a lot of people miss, is this is not a war between NATO and Russia. This is a war between NATO versus Russia and China and Saudi Arabia probably, and Iran and Brazil, and whoever else is in the BRICS nations will probably join the side of the Russians and the Chinese. And so it ain't looking good. Not good at all. And for years and years, our money has been propping up NATO. That's one of the things Trump was actually really good about. He went in and was like, hey, no, you're going to have to pay for your own shit. We ain't giving you nothing. And I don't know if he stuck to his guns on that or not, but at least the sentiment was there to, he threatened to get us out of NATO. The Cold War was over, so why wouldn't we get rid of NATO? So anyway, things are heating up. The frying pan is getting hot. And what really concerns me is the state of the current U.S. military. All branches, they're all having record low levels of people signing up at the recruiters' offices. So their record low levels of military recruits are coming in right now. And they've already had to lower the standards because, the obesity epidemic, or whatever you want to call it, a bunch of fat tubs of lard here in the United States of America. Even young kids coming out of high school are just obese by the old standards, and they had to lower the standards to allow more obese people in. So we've got that going against us. And not only that, you've got the super woke mentality of the modern military, pushing LGBTQ agenda and all of this other stuff, preferred pronouns or whatever else they want to say. I mean, it's just unbelievably woke. And they've done this over the long term. Obama had a litmus test back in the day, they claim. And the litmus test was this: will you fire on American citizens if ordered to do so? And if you said yes, you got to keep your job, you got to get a promotion, you got to become a general like General Milley. And I'm not saying that's all he did to get that, to get that ranking, but that certainly helped him to get way up there where he is. But you got, basically they got rid of all the old school pro-America, pro-Constitution, mostly conservative generals and leadership out of the military branches under Obama. And so even though Trump tried to do things to restore and rebuild the military, it wasn't enough. He wasn't able to undo all of the crap that Obama did in 8 years. So we've got that going against us. We've got super woke military. So who in the hell in their right mind would come out of high school and want to go fight for Joe Biden as commander-in-chief? Not me, for sure. So I understand why many people are choosing not to even go into the recruiter's office anymore or talk to them. So we've got that going against us. And the biggest thing that makes me worried is that they're going to get us in such a pickle. They're going to get us backed into the corner so far, because this is basically a world scale pissing contest. And eventually, we're going to get some piss on our foot. And when we do, it's going to be very uncomfortable. It's going to make us all very uncomfortable. And we're going to feel like, hey, there's some pressure being put here on the United States of America. And when that happens, I think they're going to raise the recruitment age. They're going to have to. The draft is what I'm trying to say. The draft age. So conscription in the military. You will have to, I believe they're going to have to raise it up. At the beginning, they'll probably raise it to like 45 or whatever. I think it's 32 right now. But eventually they'll raise it to like 45, and that won't be enough. And then they'll raise it to 55. And so if you're up to 55 years old and you ever filled out your selective service card after high school, they might be calling you up. Now, they probably won't, make you go through basic training like they would a normal kid out of high school. They'll probably put you straight into a job somewhere with minimal training. But it'll be like a, behind the lines job. You'll be a mechanic. In my case, I'd probably be a mechanic or something like that. My buddy who works on sheet metal, he'd probably work in, the aircraft sheet metal department or making missiles or whatever, that kind of deal. And so I think that's how it's going to have to go this time around. During World War II, we had all the factories to our advantage. We could quickly, and we did quickly, turn those factories into munitions plants, Jeep factories, M1 Garands, M1 carbines, all the manufacturing that we used to have. The manufacturing prowess that we used to have here in the United States of America is gone. Well, it's not gone. It's in China, along with all of our tooling. I remember seeing this back in the 90s. The Chinese business investors were coming over here by the droves, buying up old factory equipment and taking it straight back to China. All of that equipment is what was able to supply us with the materials we needed to fight World War II. We don't have that anymore. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is sending all of our desperately needed resources like ammunition and, javelins and stuff like that, guns, tanks. Now they're talking about F-16s, all this stuff that they're sending over to Ukraine. We might actually need it here to win World War III. But see, the problem is, only you and I want to win World War III. The globalists want to use World War III, in my opinion, to wipe the United States off the map forever. To send us into a permanent state of third world status. We'll never be able to recover. And it's all part, you can look at everything Biden's doing to destroy every single institution here in the country, from energy to the border to the economy to, the prices at the grocery stores to the availability of food in the future, having a gas stove in your house for cooking on. I just read one earlier. They're wanting to ban your gas furnace in your house. So all of the basic stuff that you and I need to survive is under direct frontal attack by the Biden administration. And it only has one outcome: destruction of the free market of the United States of America, because they hate capitalism. They're not even secretive about it. They tell you what their enemy is. It's capitalism. They want to bring in Marxist, socialist, utopia at first, and then you'll find out later on that it's actually full-blown communism. You just didn't know it. And that'll be once you're disarmed and once you've kissed the ring of your new masters and all that stuff. But I'm not willing to do that. So anyway, guys, I think it's too late now to have diplomatic resolve on this World War III issue. I think we're going to be, eventually we're going to be drafted. That's what I think. They're not going to have any choice. They're going to put people like me and you in supportive roles at first. And when all the people on the front lines can't hold guns up anymore because they're all shot and wounded or whatever, then they're going to bring us up to the front lines. We're going to lose this war. It's almost like it's all been planned all along. I mean, you can look back at several of these, just dastardly things we've found out about, like Operation Lockstep and, things that have gone on here in our own country under our own government, like Operation Mockingbird and all these just dastardly deeds that our own government has been doing that are clandestine. They're not even, clandestine against our enemies. They're using these clandestine tactics against the American people, against free people. And so, yeah, we've got a real problem, and I don't see any solutions. So let me know what you guys think about all this. Do you think we're in World War III or on the verge of World War III? Do you think it will come into the United States and be in the continental United States this time? I mean, actually having, a Red Dawn situation where Russians and Chinese are paratrooping in, and we have to, pick up our weapons and defend the homeland. I mean, I don't know, but I could see that happening a lot more likely than it was a couple of years ago before Biden came in. A hell of a lot more likely. And I don't think it's coincidental that Hillary Clinton was talking all kinds of shit about how when she won the 2016 election, if Russia launched any cyber attacks or anything like that, she was going to go to full frontal warfare with them. So they've been wanting this war with Russia for a long time. And I think if Hillary would have won like they thought she was going to win, like they planned, like they selected for her to win in 2016, then we would have already been in war with Russia many years ago. But Trump was the anomaly. He wasn't supposed to win. Hillary and her team picked Trump as their opponent so they could beat him easily. They thought he would fall easily, but he was very surprising. He came out fighting, and he fought for the right things in most cases, and he ended up winning in 2016. Well, they couldn't allow that to happen again, so they released the COVID. That's another thing, just on the way out real quick. I don't want to go too deep into this, but be on the lookout, guys. This could be a biological warfare that we're facing. It might not just be conventional, shooting back and forth and launching mortars and, and javelin missiles and stuff like this. This could be on another level where they actually have genetic, targeted weapons that could go after a certain group of people. And they could easily release this in the United States. Maybe COVID was a test run to see how much they could get away with and how much the infection would spread around the world. I don't know. I'm speculating. But I do remember 4 or 5 years ago reading about the Deagle report, I believe it was called. And in this Deagle report, they predicted that the United States would have 70 to 75% less people in it by the year 2025. Could this be what the Deagle report was talking about? Either a biological or a conventional type war where a vast majority of people in the United States get killed and our military never recovers. Our superpower status is gone forever. Could that be what this is all about? That's what I think. Also, that Deagle report thing makes me think that, what has happened? The United States government claims that 70% of our population got at least one jab. Could it be that it's something to do with that? And I don't want to say too much or else I'll get banned here, but maybe they could use some other biological agent that targets people that have the mRNA in their blood or something like that. I don't know. Again, I'm speculating here, so don't take this to the bank. This is just to start a conversation with you guys. So let me know what you're thinking, what you're seeing around, especially if you live around military bases. Let us know down in the comments. So I don't know, guys. It's time to keep your powder dry and be prepared for anything. I think war's coming, and it's coming faster than any of us think. It may already be here. Appreciate you tuning in. I stand for liberty. I hope you do too.